I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today I am in Newport Beach, California, and I am at the Cardiovascular Tech Summit, and let me tell you, the Tech Forum, and I'm having all kinds of fun, and I was able to snag the CEO of Octane for a quick interview. I know you're busy, Bill, but thank you and welcome on the show.
Welcome to Newport Beach. I'm glad you're able to make it.
Oh, man. So I saw you on stage this morning, and you were talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the third year for the conference?
This is year number 3 for cardiovascular, yeah.
And year over year, this thing's been growing. I've heard of some participants that have come back now. This is their second year, or some of them even their third year. What do you attribute some of the success of this particular conference to?
Well, I think we've built this off of platforms that we've used for years. So we've, we just completed our 12th year in ophthalmology, our 5th year in medical aesthetics. So it's basically the same kind of format. It's the same playbook. So, I think what we could do is accelerate these things much faster than, we had when we first started it with simply ophthalmology.
Yeah.
I think the reputation of Octane and the great board that we put together, for planning the Cardiovascular Tech Forum, we were able to really reach out to great investors, great leaders, across the industry. So word got out pretty quickly, and we grew. I think from year 1 to 2, we basically doubled audience, and we increased from last year to this year probably about 40%.
Yeah. And for those at home maybe that aren't familiar with Octane, maybe give a little bit of the history of the background of the company.
Yeah, so I've been here 9 years as a CEO. The organization is actually 22 years, and it was started by a variety of executives here, one of them being Mike Musalem, who's well known obviously here in cardiovascular, and I was just listening to him speak. But it was put together 22 years ago, and the intent was to be bringing together all those facets of the innovation industry in Orange County. Since then we've really grown. We, currently today, we've got 5 different areas that we focus on, and one is these events like you're seeing today, and I always say we're not an events company, but we are, and we are in the fact that this is where we showcase the companies that have come through our accelerator, the investors that we have, and the innovation and the ideas. So that's one. Number 2 is we have an accelerator. So we work with about 70 companies a year and help prepare them for institutional funding. Then the third is we have a platform that enables us to help these companies raise capital and all the resources that go to make that company successful. Yeah. So it's not good enough just to raise capital. You need to know what to do and be smart with that. Then we have an AI analytics platform, rather new. And then the 5th is really the impact to the community. So we're very community oriented. We're a very unique nonprofit, but I'd say our North Star is high-paying job creation. But in addition to that, it's really just economic development and fostering collaboration across the entire Southern California region, not just Orange County.
Now, you mentioned earlier, and I could be off on the number, so correct me on this one, but you work with about 70, but you're looking at about 500 or so companies a year. Like, what goes into that kind of decision-making process? Yeah,
we see about 500 to 550 companies a year that will have an interest in joining the accelerator. We end up working with 65 to 70. Yeah. That seems to be the number over the last couple of years. There's a lot of things that drive that. One is that this particular program, the accelerator, it's supported by a grant from the SBDC, and so the resources we have only really permit us to do about 65 or 70 companies. That's number one. But it's pretty easy to diligence them down. I mean, about half of them just aren't in the right industries. They're way too early, or it's simply a bad idea. So let's just use 500. We go from 500 to 250 pretty quickly. Then we meet with those companies, and we get that down to about 125, and then we get really granular from that standpoint, and that's where we select that that 70 number.
Yeah, and you mentioned you showed this very nice slide earlier about raising capital and just the type of capital that's been risen by some of the recent companies,
Yeah.
and those were some big numbers. I don't even remember the slide, but there was a lot of B's. I don't know if you remember. I'm sure you know.
So you were in there watching, actually,
I was
right?
watching them. That's what I'm telling you. I was watching you.
Yeah. So if you just look at the Octane portfolio companies, we've helped them raise. And this is since about in 2012. We've helped them raise about $8.4 billion.
Yes.
With a B, and
that's what I said when I heard that in the. I was sitting down.
And last year alone, 2023 was just under $1 billion. It was 947 million, I believe it was, something like that.
What do you attribute some of that success to? Like, what do you attribute some? Of course, the companies. I get that, but I think there's something special about Octane and the people being brought together. Like, it's unique. I cover a lot of conferences, and not everybody's given numbers like that.
Yeah, well, this is an ecosystem. I mean, if you look at it, Octane on its own is an ecosystem.
Yes.
But it's a part of a much bigger ecosystem. Is the way I like to look at it. So I think as you look at that, yes, part of it is the diligence and what we go through. So, we're selecting what we feel are the best companies to go through the process. But then it's the support. It's the incredible support that we get from the advisors that are really mentoring. Because our accelerator is more mentoring than it is something else. It's not giving them space and they could just hang out. Because companies are a little bit more advanced from that anyway. And they've pretty much got that. So what we're doing is we're providing them access to a variety of advisors and mentors that could work with them and help them get FDA approval, help them get regulatory, help them in commercialization, manufacturing, any of those things. So I really think it's the ecosystem that's built around Octane that enables us to have such a successful exit of companies that come out of the accelerator.
And the AI side of things, I know that you mentioned that was relatively new. Like what can you share on that at this point?
Well, there's two things there. One is that we've got an actual product now called Haystacks, and it's a rather unique product. It was created about a year ago. We've commercialized it for about 9 months now. So we license it, and the market is very niche. The market is other investors, not individual, but VC or institutional VC, corporate VC. So that's one. It could be family offices, and it could also be other accelerators. And so what Haystacks, and kind of the pun intended is you find the needle in the haystack.
Yeah, I got that.
But it's STAX at the end. And so what it enables us to do is we've gone back and we've captured 40 data points on every company that's come through Launchpad. So about 2,000 companies, 80,000 data points. And historically, we rank these on a scale of 1 to 4. We'd add them up, divide by 40, say 3.8, you must be doing really good. And that served us really well. And directionally, it was very accurate. However, a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, we did a regression analysis. And actually, this was done by an intern. And they went back and said, you're using each of these 40 as if they have an equal I can see which ones were more significant, more important, put a little bit more emphasis on them. And now we could take a company that comes out of our accelerator, and by the way, again, we license this to others, that they tool, there's a 92% probability that I'm going to be successful. And success measured by the fact that, one, it'll go on to raise the round that they're in, and two, that it'll be an operating entity. So the success measurement is not about how big an exit that they'll have.
Yeah. So that's amazing, first off. That's highly interesting. And to use that data and to use those data points and that history, like I've done, I don't know, probably like 10 interviews so far today, and hearing the way that data's being used to solve real world problems and applied, it's interesting.
It's never been more important. I think, data directs us. We follow the data. But if you look at it, it's really significant, because when you've got companies that frankly don't have revenue and certainly don't have earnings, then you're left as an investor to just go on your gut feel. And I don't know if you have, but I've made mistakes with that before.
We all have,
because
yes.
we fall in love with the story, we fall in love with the entrepreneur, and nobody's intentionally misleading you. It's
course
just they're so passionate about their company and about where they're going with it that you just go, wow, this is great. Let me throw money at it. And so we're trying to provide the data that says, okay, look at this. You could, at some point you want to put whether I trust the CEO or the founder, whether I like them, whether I could work with them. That's all great, but data will drive you to that decision. And so, at the end of the day, you're going to make a much more realistic and less risky investment decision.
Yeah, makes total sense. Looking into the rest of the year for Octane in general, not just the Cardiovascular Tech Forum, which we're at today, like what's on the agenda?
So, we've got a year full of events. We've got in 2 weeks we've got our high tech awards. So that's kind of like the the Grammys or the Golden Globes or whatever you want to call it of innovation. So it's a night of celebrating innovation across Orange County. Then we end our programming in the year on October 8th and 9th with our Medical Innovation Forum. So the Medical Innovation Forum pulls all the different disciplines in, not just cardiovascular, not just as I mentioned before, we do ophthalmology and aesthetics. It's a more general conference. So you're going to get a little bit of a different audience because what you have here today is everybody is associated and everybody is in cardiovascular to some extent. And then comes January, we start it all over again with aesthetics and ophthalmology and a full innovation week, which we do that in the spring.
Well, Bill, this has been a lot of fun. I know you got to get back to the conference. Last thing, Octane, if somebody wants to learn more, how do they do it?
OctaneOC.org. That's our website. You could look at anything that you want on that. The other thing to access when you see that, our impact report. Our impact report is probably the best tool that gives somebody a good overview of what we do.
Fantastic. And for everybody that's watching, just so you know, we'll put the links to that in the website so that you can just click on the links and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, we welcome you. Hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. Each and every day we're bringing you new content, new coverage, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way in your journey as well. So again, hit that subscribe or follow. And Bill, again, appreciate you coming on.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.